Technology, Federal Ministry for Climate Action, Energy, Mobility, Innovation and Technology. As I said this morning, it was quite a mouthful, it still is. Moving on to you, Nadia, we have Nadia Jungwirth with us. She is the Managing Director and the CFO von Volkswagen. So I have to do this. Voestalpedien, Rail Technology, GmbH. You can correct me on my pronunciation later, Nadia. I apologize for that. Basak we have with us as well. And Basak is the leading building and architectural expert for Oriental Consultants. And last but not least, on the panel today, we have Sapir Kartenstein. She is the project manager for the Private-Public Partnership Projects Division in Israel. I don't know if we can have any more P's in that title. That's another one that's quite a tongue twister to say. So I am your host for today. In my day job, I'm responsible for marketing at TÜV SÜD globally. And together with Sylvia and another lady, we are responsible to head up the Women's Network globally. Sylvia, you can see here on the chat, I think Katie is also another founding member of the team. And she's also, I think, with us today. So Sylvia is going to be manning the chat. And she will be sort of selecting the questions that we feel are relevant when we talk about the 3 areas of topics that we have lined up. So today we want to cover 3 areas. The first area is all about sustainability in relation to the rail industry. The second area is the topic of societal considerations. And the third part is the digitization of the rail industry. So all very pertinent topics. And we really hope to cover off all of those today. So before we do that, I'd like to ask the ladies to introduce themselves. And we have quite a fun slide lined up for you. So we're in an elevator, a virtual elevator, and you each have 2 minutes to give a short introduction to me about yourself for the audience today. So I'm going to start right to left to shake things up a bit because I did it the other way around this morning. So let's start off with you, Valentina.
Yes, good afternoon to everyone, or good morning to the other part of the world. Yes, I'm Valentina Monaco, and I work for TÜV SÜD. As you mentioned, I'm responsible for the rail infrastructure department, and basically we are an international and accredited inspection body, what we normally call third party, and I'm specialized on track works and overall rail system integration with special focus on safety assessment. What makes my job challenging is, of course, that I have this double role as global head and as a technical expert, because then it's much easier to take strategical decision based on technical know-how. And what is fundamental if we look at our very specific field of rail infrastructure. And I'm almost 20 years in this company, and I had really the privilege to manage and perform safety assessment in really milestone projects all around the world. Some of them are the Marmara line, like Bashak, or the first high-speed line in Israel, or the handover of the first tramway in Jerusalem with Sapir. Well, with Voestalpine, we are the third party, so we had enough experience also with them. And I think this is the nice phase of this job, that even if we are a third party and independent, we are also able to build up a network which is really technically focused.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Valentina. So let's move over to you, Nina.
Yes, thank you. So I'm Nina Avramovic-Crninic. I'm originally from Bosnia and Herzegovina. That's where my tongue twister last name comes from. As already said, I'm the head of railway technology in Austrian Federal Ministry for Climate Action. What it means basically that in this time of record high investments in the railway sector in Austria, which is about 18 billion euros for the next 5 years, all of the decisions regarding railway technology, as well as all of the communication from and to EU, runs through my department. It is my task to communicate European decisions with state railways and local smaller railways, and also to bring the Austrian perspective to the EU. It's a broad spectrum of topics and assignments covering everything from European train control system, TSIs in the area of control, command and signal, operations, energy, noise, infrastructure, then digital automatic uplink for the freight transport, the implementation of the fourth railway package and so on. It's a handful. So in my current job, I think my previous experience of 11 years as construction site manager and innovations project manager helps me a lot to look at this package as a whole and to look at the challenge from various perspectives.
Great, thank you so much for sharing, Nina. So let's move on to you, Nadia.
With a pleasure. Good afternoon, good morning to wherever in which time zone the auditorium is. Yeah, I'm representing voestalpine Rail Technology. It's a part of the voestalpine group, which is a steel producing group with a very strong focus on innovation. So we also consider us as more than steel, but we consider us as technology leaders in all that we do. Currently, I have the position of the Chief Sales Officer in the company. And we are active as a company on the global market, so to say. So I'm leading a very international team, and our rails to go to all over the world and to all different railway applications. So it's the high speed, heavy haul, metro, tram, a lot of different application areas. Personally, I have a history in this business of 25 years now already, worked on several projects, had area responsibilities within the group for our sister company, for the railway systems. So I've quite collected some experience also in different projects and challenges. Currently, my task, my role is leading a team of salespeople. This also includes a big team of technical engineers who provide the customer support, who do lifecycle cost analysis, and also provide services to our customers in terms of welding expertise or other consulting services. Well, where are we in the moment? We are in a true VUCA world environment, and this is rather new for the railway industry because we have always been a little bit like predictable and stable. This has considerably changed, and this is the core challenge and task for me and my team. So it's all about to facilitate communication, cooperation, do constant monitoring of the market and influencing factors, and develop strategies and solutions together with the team in a strong collaboration.
Great, thank you so much, Nadia. So let's move on to you, Basak. You're on mute, you need to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Başak Doğan. So I'm an architect working for railway systems in the last 18 years. So both I'm in the contractor side and consultant side. In contractor side, Taisei Corporation, a Japanese company, again on consultant, Oriental Consultant, Japanese company, mainly handling the integration and the interface with the systems and the other parties which is affected the railway system, and also owner and operational interfaces with the new lines coordination. And what as I'm also focusing on the passenger evacuation in the normal cases and the emergency cases. It is how affect the system coordination and how they link each other. So it is a total coordination and combination of the all system in the emergency case. So it is a which I really interested and which we work with Valentina in the safety case issue. So this is all from me actually as an architect.
Fantastic, thanks so much, Basak. Last but not least, over to you, Safia.
Yes, hi everyone. So I'm Safia from Israel, and in the last 4.5 years, I've been working as the executive branch of the Ministry of Finance for the Jerusalem Light Rail Train project. This is the PPP project. It's only 3 Ps, please. So I can divide my role into three main responsibilities. The first one is that I'm a member of the tender committee, which is basically the client of the project, and it makes all the managerial decisions in the project. The second one is that I'm responsible for the project's full picture integration, managing the significant milestones, such as the tender process, the bid evaluation, and the financial closing, pushing the project forward so that we will meet the schedule and even be ahead of it. And the third part is that I'm also the liaison between the state and the concessionaire in all managerial aspects. I'm managing the processes designed to produce a full and smooth cooperation between the parties. As a result, I'm involved in the legal, financial, engineering, operation, and maintenance issues. Lately, I even got to lead the first handover in Israel between concessionaires of the Jerusalem Light Rail train, together with my dear friend Valentina. I'm doing all of this in full cooperation with the JTMT, which is the Jerusalem Transportation Master Plan Team, the executive branch of the Ministry of Transportation that currently manages projects in the amount of 8.5 billion euros in the Jerusalem metropolitan. Last but not least, today we are celebrating Israel's Independence Day, 74 years of our beautiful country that is constantly growing and progressing, and I invite you all to visit Israel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Safia, and all of you, also for taking your time out of very clearly busy schedules to be with us. Really appreciate it. So I'm going to flip things up a bit and change around the sort of the set of questions. And let's start off with something a little bit more quick fire. So my first question is to you, Nina. And my question is, if you could make one global policy change, what would it be? And if you have time in 1 or 2 minutes, why?
Oh, I love this question. It would be more of a wish, and that is to swipe a clean slate and forget national specificities of all countries that is burdening us right now, and to start over with the same system and same rules for every country. Therefore, one could say I wish for all the TSIs, and that's technical standards for interoperability, and all of the interoperability issues to be harmonized and uniform. But I'm afraid for that wish, I would need a fairy godmother.
Okay, wonderful. That's a fantastic answer. Thank you. So Valentina, over to you. So given the speed of transformation, will the TIC industry, and those who don't know what that means, you will learn it now, it's testing, inspection and certification. Will the TIC industry be able to keep up with the rail standards? That's a question for you, Valentina. Yeah, you need to unmute.
Yes, here I am. Yes, definitely. Yes, I believe there is the possibility, definitely, and we are working on that. We are working on that. I think the railways has a big responsibility for the next years, and the responsibility is, of course, related to the issue that we have to support all the population in order to get a more sustainability country as a world and the only way to do is, of course, is to move on rails, and moving on rails, it means also for us to work with standards, to adapt the standards to the digitalization, and we know that the rail until 2030 they have a big and tough, let's say, program in order to develop all these goals.
Great, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to move over to more of a personal aspect to understand a bit more of your journey. Sapir, my question to you is, what is the most important thing you've learned so far in your job?
Yes, so what I've learned so far in my 4 years in the industry is that at the end of the day, we must remember that all our hard work is meant to serve the citizen, who is the end user. And once we aim for a goal, keeping that in mind, all the workload, the bureaucracy, and the challenges, and we have many of them, should not constitute a barrier. And we have proven that we are able to reach good solutions with great efficiency to create a public transportation system that will provide a reliable and approachable and accessible solution to the residents and the visitors of Jerusalem.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. So moving on to you, Nadia, you mentioned the word VUCA when you introduced yourself and your role. My question is, given the speed of change in the rail industry, do you apply agile leadership techniques to simply keep up with this volatility?
Thanks for the question. Definitely I do, and we do, and I think this is not only necessary to do within a company, but I think that principles like more collaboration and empowerment of stakeholders is something that also the railway will need, and the cooperation between the railway organizations and the industry will need. Basically, I can say from my experience that employee empowerment brings measurable results. A group, if you empower people to just come up with their ideas, to share it, to have open discussion, like my technicians just started a think tank here. It was their idea and I supported it a lot, and the outcomes are really good. So it's for me clear that agile leadership principles and techniques are a success factor and will be even more important in the future.
Okay, thank you. And last question, sort of to get to know each of the panelists, over to you, Basak. And you've described the fact that you've worked extensively globally. What are the upsides and the downsides to working globally? The challenges and the benefits? You need to unmute.
Sorry again. The benefits are it makes you more flexible, more oriented, make you encouraged to learn more and more actually. Each country or each culture has own style, has own way of doing something actually. So you need to know very well about that point to get communicate with the population and the owner also. These are open your mind, create solutions, and make you think more in detail for every condition. Even maybe you didn't face in your other project, but later on you face something and you need to sort it out this one. So it's make your brain to find a solution for every condition. So we can say it's create a knowledge adaptation for many cases and the many places that you are attend. And the challenging is the correct understanding of the place where you are. Firstly, need to examine the usage of each culture because the way of thinking is changing for everybody and every location. So this is a very challenging point you need to understand very clearly. And once you achieve, it's easy to reach the target what you want to go forward actually.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so I have an opportunity now to get out to know our panelists a little bit more detail. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've got 3 areas we want to cover. We're talking about sustainability, digitization, and the societal aspect of rail. And I'm going to start the second session with the topic of digitization. And my first question goes to you, Valentina. And my question is this: how can we leverage increased automation in order to reach optimal efficiency of our rail operations?
Thank you. Yes, well, we have to say that first we needed to deliver an overall and more sustainable transport system. So rail must be able to accommodate increased demand, and the first thing that we have to do obviously is a new infrastructure where necessary, but we cannot forget the existing infrastructure. And in that case, we need to go through a systematic digitalization and automation of operations. Automation will require, of course, covering on digital solution, on artificial intelligence, imaging, robotics, and whatever is in this field. But we should not forget that we have to address also this issue to the subcomponents. And once we think to the autonomous mobility or the automatic train operation, it's something that basically the combination of these three things, like train control, automatic train protection, and automatic train supervision, this system enables operator at the end to do more with less. And this is really the secret, by the way. And therefore they will be able to be like an orchestra, you know, that you can finally tune that, but at the end you have less risk. And this is, I think, the direction we have to move, we need for our future. And I believe that in the next 20 years, we will have our focus mostly on the autonomous train. This will be the future that we will follow. And of course, there will be also a very, I think, change in the infrastructure, because we as infrastructure, we are not used to too much innovation, let's say. Yes, sometimes from the components, but the way we are moving forward is really to put more digitalization in the infrastructure field. And this is, we know basically that within 2030, we will have double kilometers of high-speed line. We will double them, or we will have to make transport carbon neutral. And by 2050, one of the goals is that the rail freight traffic will have double. And yes, and therefore we are moving in this direction, basically. Yes. And as I told you before, the infrastructure is the most conservative one, and but there are already signs that we are moving, and we're moving quickly, by the way, because we have the so-called digital twins. So that is basically you can reproduce a railway track, a bridge, or a tunnel, and you can follow the circumstances, for example, weather, traffic volume, vehicle weight, and whatever, and you can predict a lot. You can also monitor directly online. And there is, by the way, by the HS2 in the UK, there is already a project running where they are orienting themselves to the, let's say, Formula One and aviation, and they started basically to organize a real-time monitoring sensor, so that you can follow up the project on real time. And of course, then there is the part related to predict and prevent maintenance and so on. So I think that if I can conclude quickly, we can say, okay, challenges, we have challenges for until 2030. We know that the railways shall be more attractive. We have to maximize the affordable capacity, and we have to be sustainable and safe. Yes. So what are the answers basically of the railways to these challenges? Because we know the challenges are coming always from a upper level, but the railways, I think, already came back with very interesting, let's say, answers, saying, okay, we can make digitalization, automation, new mobility solution, and sustainable solution. So in this way, the railways is gonna send back the answer for these three main challenges. And I really believe that we will have a big change in the next 10 years. By the way, I think really in 10 years, maybe we will sit here and we will say, okay, we were not wrong.
That's really interesting. So fantastic insights. Thank you. I think Nadia has something to add to that.
Yeah, thank you. I would really like to emphasize what Valentina said, because I really think that there's a huge potential in this digitalization for the existing infrastructure. In order to meet the future challenges, it will be really necessary to understand the system, to better understand the system, and less act on the single components, which in many cases has been done over the last, I don't know, 150 years, let's call it like that. So we have the chance to better understand how the behavior of the whole infrastructure is and how things are interlinked or interfering. The industry is ready, so there are a lot of solutions there. It will again be to emphasize the other aspect of before, how will the collaboration be done on that? How can you integrate existing experience of track operators, of people out there, with the digital information that you get with the additional data? And how will all this be shared between the railway organizations and the industry? But I fully agree, huge potential, and I would love to sit here in 10 years and have another discussion on that one. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. So picking up actually on something that Valentina mentioned about the digital twin. I'm not here to pitch TÜV SÜD at all, but it's very reminiscent of the things that we're doing in other industry sectors, which sort of in for example, plants, nuclear power plants, other plants, we have various other assets. So it's, you know, it's quite interesting to see parallel developments, which brings me to my next question to you, Basak. And my question is, how does this increasing rail automation affect the knowledge connectivity with other related industries, such as automotive? Is there more interconnectivity? Is there knowledge exchange? Are there combined, let's say, exchange between industry sectors to facilitate that speed of advancement we just talked about? Maybe it's not 10 years, maybe it's 5 years if we collectively put our wisdom together.
Yeah, yes, I totally agree. Maybe 5 years, not more than that, I guess, because nowadays drivers, less trains are started operating in all over the world. So we can catch the same point for the public cars or cars, individual cars also. So the same automation and knowledge can be adapted to the cars. And again, with using the artificial intelligence, we can reduce the energy by driving style and the brake style in the roads. It can be also automatically integrated with the mapping programs, with the traffic conditions, signaling. So it can be overall same knowledge in the train system can be adapted in the roads and the traffic. So it's really a connectivity with the automotive sector that we can use, because now it's also a safety factor. The accidents also can reduce many factors with the knowledge of the railway system. So it's really good, challenging, and good benefits for the automotive industry by using the similar systems and the knowledge about the artificial intelligence of the system. This is what I have seen, and we are on the way, I think. It's slowly, the automotive sector also using some parts of this intelligence.
Very exciting times. Okay, thanks for that. So shifting to the topic of signaling, and my question to you, Nina, is that the digitization of Europe's rail signaling systems, ERTMS, ETCS, they've been discussed now for years, and they're currently in the making. So my question is this: do you think that this is the right step towards further digitalization of the railway sector?
Yes, I definitely think that's the right way to go. And for those that are not handling ETCS, European Train Control System, just to explain, the idea is for the train to communicate with the infrastructure and to say, I'm traveling through this railway section right now, and then the infrastructure responds by saying, okay, I'm turning the traffic light green for you, and so on. So I think it's definitely the right way to go. We can rise capacity in this manner, but what is of extreme importance along the journey is to look that we make it uniform throughout Europe, and not for each country to have its own version of ETCS, which is unfortunately what I have seen, what I see going on right now. And further, what I notice in certain people is a reluctance to this new way of train control system, because we are creatures of habit. We tend to think that paper and mechanical controls are safer. but it's a false sense of security through the known scenario. The paper can also contain mistakes and mechanical parts can fail. We can never achieve a totally accident-free rail, but just to look at the numbers, in the years from 2015 to 2019, that's a period of 5 years, we have had around 300 train accidents per country in the middle of the European average. 300 accidents in 5 years means 60 accidents in 1 year. And I'm sure we have that many in 1 day or 1 week in other means of transport, such as street transport. I believe ETCS will make it even safer because we are all giving our best in order to achieve that. And I have never seen Europe so unified as today at reaching various goals in the rail industry. And with that, I can say I believe firmly in the bright future of ETCS, but it's important to implement it smart and strategically and uniform, because if we don't do that, there is no real benefit.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing those insights, Nina. I just want to encourage all of you, and I think it's a very international crowd joining the panel discussion today, to pose your questions, right? Everything around sustainability, digitization, societal considerations. You have such a global wealth of expert knowledge here on the panel. Please feel free, and we'll stop in about 5 minutes to pull any questions from the chat. So please think while I'm asking Nadia the next question. And my question is this: so global trends are influencing rail's smart future, and these are making rail services far more dynamic, more efficient, more environmentally friendly and digital. But which new challenges do you think will emerge with the increasing digitalization and automation of the rail industry?
Thank you for the question. I think this perfectly relates to what was already said before. What will we see? We'll see more traffic, more train traffic, which is good, because that means that more goods are transported on a very green transport mode. So this is a very good thing. But from the infrastructure point of view, and this is where I'm coming from, so I would like to focus on that, this will mean that we will have more load on the track infrastructure. So the products that are used will need to be more robust, more resilient. We will need to look at things more like on things like availability, reliability, and life cycle costing on the one hand. And the other thing is that, of course, with the increased train traffic, we will see less maintenance windows, so less time for doing maintenance. Again, an argument for really looking at having the best products and not the products that are the simplest, cheapest, or whatsoever in the purchasing process. Yeah, I think there is one important element also on the political side for us. At the moment, we do, unfortunately, in the rail industry, too often see tenders with the prices, the purchasing price as the single award criteria. And I'm convinced that in order to reach the target, to master the challenges and to implement sustainability, and it's not only the ecological sustainability, but the technical, the life cycle point of view, we must give these characteristics, these things a value. So availability, reliability, life cycle, or service life, long service life must become a value, or must get a value also and be considered as part of the pricing. And there is already some steps forward by the EU. There is a public procurement directive out of 2014, which promotes the so-called need principle, is the most economically advantageous tender principle, which includes by definition also a whole life cycle approach. And this is crucial for long-term investments, because the cost over the lifetime for maintenance, for failures, for not availability are much higher than what is saved at the beginning if you just look at the purchasing price. And we think that there is also room for movement and improvement, and we think that with that we can really get a big boost into driving the railways into a new decade, so to say.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Nadia. So I think in the meantime, We've got quite a number of questions in the chat, so I'll hand over to Sylvia briefly to read them out.
Right, thank you very much. So I start with the first one right away, which is actually a question directly for Valentina. And the person is asking, the idea to implement AI to the railway projects is a good idea, but don't you think this issue can make the projects more expensive? Also, how do you think this AI will impact on the RAMs?
Yes, well, I do not think that it might impact the project costs in such a way that we believe it will be just a problem. On the contrary, I do believe that this is necessary in order to reduce the cost, because bringing automation in the entire system brings you automatically to more safety, more reliability, more availability, and also maintenance. Because as I told you before, the way that we should follow is to digitalize also the maintenance, by the way. And you have to see a project not only from the point of view we have a huge cost at the beginning of the project, but we have to see a railway like in the next 10, 20 years. And if you look to this model, then I believe that it's the key of success to put automation in on the railways. Yes, and of course the RAMs. You know, the story is always the same. Once you make it one time, this is the most expensive one, and the later application, it always just a delta. So I'm not sure that this will impact so much the costs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Valentina. Should we have another question from the chat?
Yes, we do. We have two more actually. So I'd go with the next one, which is regarding sustainability. So the question is not directly framed as a question, but I will try to sort it out into a question. So it's more on the sustainable energy topic in the rail industry and the use of green energy sources like wind, solar, and so on, to make this a really carbon-free transportation way. So what is your view on that?
I think we have Nina with her hand up ready to answer that. Thank you.
Yeah, because I talked about it in the first morning portion of this session, and I can talk about the state of play in Austria, which is Austrian State Railways are firmly, they believe in producing clean energy, and they have their own hydropower plants, which cover about around 1/3 of the needs of the railway. And we also have research projects. Somebody asked
I thought it was too good to be true that no one's frozen so far. So it had to happen. I was just thinking that the technique is working.
basically mounting the solar panel.
Are you back with us, Nina? You're frozen, but we can hear you. She's gone.
I'm here.
That's good. We just can't see you. Just continue talking.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that we have the research with solar panels, vertical solar panels on our existing noise barriers. We still don't know return of investment because we're in the phase where we're looking at what's the best angle, what's the best side of the world to turn it, how can we mount it, what's the best type of the panel, and so on. But we're investing a lot in the clean energy, and that's very important right now in this geopolitical situation. Also, we have Technical University of Graz, which does a lot in this area, and they have currently the study of CO2 production on the construction sites, which includes everything from truck drives to production of materials and how harmful it is for the environment. So we can get a better sense of what's causing problems and what's the right way to go and stay very neutral and sustainable.
Thanks for your perspective on that, Nina. So I think Nadia would like to add something.
Yeah, as Nina was raising the general political or state perspective, I would like to just add the industry perspective. From the point of view of voestalpine, I mean, we are having, for example, our own hydrogen power station. We are thinking of implementing more solar power. We are constantly working on energy efficiency. And the rail industry, like we as voestalpine, are also thinking forward with a clear strategy towards carbon-free steel production. So we are the leader in the research and development. We have projects with here close to my office. We have two research and development applications to using hydrogen for producing steel. So there is a lot happening from the political side, but also from the industry.
Thank you. Thanks for those additions. Should we have one more question from the chat, Sylvia? Then we'll move on to another section and then pop the rest of the questions in a little bit later. Do you have one more for us?
Sure. Then I'll go to one more, which is about predictions on the industry itself. So at the moment, the predictions are relevant to the European railway systems, or are they also true for the US? And what is the current state of the US railway system?
I could say a word or two, or maybe Valentina, because she's very internationally active. But from my perspective, it's two different worlds. Everything that we are talking about in Europe, we can't apply in US simply because it's another culture of transport, another there is no infrastructure manager in railway operations in the sense that it is in Europe. We have it separate, but it's still under one roof, so to say, under state railways, and it functions very, very differently in US. It can't be compared, if I'm the one to say.
I do agree with you. And I think also that the state of development that we have in Europe is right now not comparable to the US. So it's really like we would compare Apple with peers. Yes, so we are at a different level of because we have different needs and at different distances. They have to cover much bigger distances than what we do in Europe, basically. Yes, so the concept is definitely different.
Okay, thank you. So what we'll do now is take a bit of a different shift into a new direction. And we will come to the questions from the chat, the ones that we haven't addressed yet. So we're going to now talk about societal considerations. And I have a question for you, Sapir, around the topic of what I have experienced firsthand in terms of your societal challenges when you faced the construction of the Green Line light rail in Jerusalem. So just a bit of a background, I had a pre-call with Sapir. I learned a lot myself in this discussion. I thought it was very interesting for her to share that with the larger group today.
Yes, thank you, Liz. So Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, is not only the largest city in Israel, but probably the most complex one. We have the denominations and lifestyles in the city center. We have a large population of ultra-Orthodox, as well as a secular population. And in East Jerusalem, we have a large Christian and Muslim Arab population. In addition, the topographic structure is challenging and the population is very dense. And of course, there are numerous highly sensitive historic sites with global importance around Jerusalem. One of the special things about Jerusalem is the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community that creates its own unique challenges with respect to the Jerusalem light rail train. This community has special characteristics such as closure and segregation, modesty, separation between male and females, families with many children, so there is high dependence on public transportation since the cars are not big enough. In their view, the train is perceived as a means of transportation that is not suitable for their sector. It is identified with the existing line that passes through non-ultra-Orthodox areas. In fact, they are concerned that the use of the train instead of buses will cause ultra-Orthodox and non-ultra-Orthodox to mix, which will defy the commandments they must keep according to their beliefs and traditions. operations. What we did in order to receive their approval for the light rail train with no objection at the municipal committees, we had to build their trust by meeting with them in many individual meetings, pay attention to each one of the ultra-Orthodox factions, and coordinate with their different leaderships. One of the issues considered to be a game changer was that in the current situation, one of the main junctions next to which a large population of ultra-Orthodox lives is the most polluted junction in Israel and possess a real life hazard to its residents. The ultra-Orthodox leadership understood that the junction and the street will be blocked in the foreseeable future due to a heavy vehicular and bus traffic, as well as old collapsing infrastructure. They understood that in order to develop the area, the train must operate along the section, which would bring a renewal of the street and resolution for the traffic and the pollution issues. Today, this section is under construction, and I truly hope that we will not have any further societal challenges in the future. So that's it. This is the main challenge we face with.
It's just such an
Thank
interesting
you.
niche situation. And I thought it was very interesting for people to have like an insight into it's a very specific setup and the societal considerations you had around that. So thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Yes, it was very, very sensitive. Thank you.
Yeah. So sort of moving to the same topic area of societal considerations. My question is to you, Valentina, and the question is this. So what is the social impact of high-speed rail? Does the development of this infrastructure lead to the exclusion of certain social groups, in your opinion?
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I do believe that it was at the beginning, and a kind of exclusion of certain social groups, but it's not anymore the case, because what is the aim of a high-speed rail? The aim is to improve the accessibility in terms of time, distance, creates new region by linking city together, and cuts the traveling time between them. So we know that until 2019, the high-speed rail transported more than 3,000 billion passengers. Mostly in percentage, if we would say 64% volume is carried in China, then 60% in Japan, and then we have more or less a 20% in Europe. And in the past, people who dominated the high-speed rail came from specific social groups, such as men in the 30s to 50s with higher incomes, higher occupational position, higher education. But this changed, and this changed based in the countries where the fare policies have been improved. And we know from some studies that have been done in different universities, and if we look to China, for example, we know that at the beginning, some passengers from less developed region of China, so western provinces, were also found to have a stronger sense of being excluded from using high-speed rail, given the concern of high fares and personal perception of cities that the system serves. The study shows that, but also lower incomes and education level are associated with higher odds of choosing conventional trains over high-speed rail. In particular, people were found to prefer less to choose conventional trains in the west and central region, and the east region when the high-speed rail services becomes available. If we look to Japan, we have a bit a different situation. We know that the Shinkansen network became the most competitive service for distance between 500 and 700 kilometers, and they have more or less 69% of total market share. And what it has been observed in Japan, it was that basically at the beginning, the high-speed rail was a social value for people, mostly for adults and working people, so people in the working age, let's say. And from new studies, it came out, or it was basically discovered, that high-speed rail is really attractive for young people. And they observed as well that the primary, secondary, and tertiary enrollment rates demonstrate a strong relationship with the growth of the high-speed rail. And if we move quickly to Europe, well, we have Spain as the country with the longest high-speed rail network in Europe, with mostly 3,700 kilometer track, and second only to China. They celebrated the 30th anniversary of high-speed rail, and they committed to increase until the end of this year the track length and to come to 4,000 kilometers. And what does it mean, this, in terms of population and effect or social effect? It means that we know that 40% of the population in 2009 had the a high-speed rail station within a 50-kilometer radius. This increased to 55% in 2012, and the prediction is that by 2030, 90% of the population will live in a radius of 50 kilometers. What was the impact on the population? Well, it was that the people move away from megacities to urban areas where, by the way, there were cheaper properties, but still have the possibility to carry out on working in cities. And if we look to Italy, well, we have the situation that they introduced in 2012 the liberalization. It means open access competition in high-speed rail. So we got a competitor of Trenitalia, which is called Italo, and in that way they started a campaign, as I told at the beginning, a fair policy, and the high-speed rail market in Italy increased about 120% between 2012, when they started with when they introduced the liberalization, until the pandemic, so 2019. And of course, in the first year, the population benefit of about 35% of the yield of the tickets. And what is important to mention is that in Italy, the development of the high-speed rail is, from the conceptual point of view, different from what happened in Germany, in Austria, in France, because in Italy we have the high-speed rail crossing the cities, and so they gave the possibility to the population to use the high-speed rail to cover distances between 150 and 200 kilometers, and of course this make it competitive against cars and air travel. And secondly, due to the fact that they cross the cities, they located, of course, the station in the cities and not decentralized like it happened in France or in Germany. Therefore, what is the result? That they had basically three different effects: more capacity, low prices, and they could deliver better services. In Germany and in Austria, we observed another way of fair pricing, fair policy. Basically, we know that in 2013, the buses, the long distance buses, were increasing in demand, and the railways reacted with the so-called super saver rail tickets, where you can travel. It's the same if it's high-speed rail or regional train or whatever. You can travel with €90. And of course, this opened the possibility to population to use also the high-speed rail. I think Nina is much more, can give much more detail on that, as she's one of the people that is also pushing in this direction. And yes, and then there is one thing, and then I finish really. It's Turkey, maybe. Okay, France. They developed as first the high-speed rail, but just in the last year they decided to use this in which is like a premium a premium segment with the of course also lower prices. And in Turkey it was I had the privilege really to follow the very first high-speed line in Turkey, to certify it, to perform a safety assessment, and I really saw with my eyes what later on you could read in the newspaper or in the researches of the university. There was a significant amount of first-time user, so which was close to 25%. And why that? Because the people were curious. They wanted to experience something new, and they started. They left the buses, which was one of the most common transportation medium, and they really started to use the high-speed rail, and they were so from. I will never forget in my life the faces of these people seeing the first time a high-speed train crossing the Anatolian side. And as I'm following it, it seems to be that this is still a successful story. So I think that there are no exclusion. In the opposite, we are merging the people.
Thank you so much for this very elaborate and interesting, full of facts answer to that question. I think you mentioned that Nina would have something to add to it. Nina, would you like to add some facts or figures to substantiate what Valentina's already talked about?
Yes. As I mentioned this morning, I'm so very proud of what we have in Austria, which is actually inclusion of this all social groups and access to high-speed railway. Since last year, from October approximately, we have a climate-friendly ticket, and students now the price is 820 euros per student, so it would be 68 per month. And for adults, it's 1,095, but we had a discount price of 650 for the whole year. And with that ticket, you can basically take any means of transport, and not just between the cities. It's also valid for Vienna, Graz, city transport. So you basically can travel throughout whole Austria with just this one ticket. So if we think about 68 euros per month, that's I can see a card that I can have so cheap in the month. And what we have seen after that is that we have cut the inland flight from Linz to Vienna, because there's a high-speed railway of West Line, and we had 2 connecting flights between those 2 cities. But now, since we are driving through 250 kilometers per hour, and you can also check in your luggage on the train, and it goes from Linz main station to the airport, there's 12 connections per day. There is really no need for air traffic anymore between those 2 cities, which is also sustainable and good for the environment. And in 225, the South Link will be deployed between Klagenfurt and Graz, which will make it possible to travel within 45 minutes between those 2 cities, which are big cities in Austria, at the cost of 68 euros per month. So I think it's very spectacular and really great offer that we have here.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have to leave it at a high note. We have a happy problem. We had the same happy problem this morning. We had too many questions, which is great. We had too little time and such fantastic content that I didn't really want to interrupt or shorten any of your contributions. So I think what we will do is come back to the questions in the chat after the session today. I think I've also taken a mental note that we need to do another session. I would like to say a very warm thank you to all of the panelists. I think it's been extremely enriching. I've learned so much listening to you on these 2 sessions today, and we've had a very international audience and some great questions as well. So thank you to everyone for joining. I've really enjoyed the experience hosting and moderating this, and it's really fantastic to showcase female experts in the rail sector. on behalf of the Women's Network from TÜV SÜD. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a very good rest of your day. And again, my thanks to you panelists. Thank you.
Thank you to you
Thanks. Bye.
and to the audience.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for organizing. It was perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Bye.